Discover the incredible transformation when I charged hotel rates for my daughter-in-law's family. Doug wiped his brow with his apron, glancing at the diner clock that ticked away the seconds meant for his precious downtime. The smell of sizzling bacon filled the air, but the warmth in the diner felt like it was evaporating. Lisa's family had taken over his small kitchen, turning his once peaceful haven into an echo chamber of boisterous laughter and chaos. He had welcomed them open-heartedly, yet each meal served felt like an invoice on his ego. The juxtaposition of family and profit tugged painfully at his chest, and the irony was almost unbearable. Has it come to this? Charging them hotel rates for a staycation? The very thought squeezed his insides. He wasn't a miser. He was a hard-working diner owner who bent over backwards for the community. But every dollar counted, especially now, with bills mounting and his diner's 28-year-old neon sign flickering more often than not. Doug paced behind the counter, steam from the grill rising, clouding his thoughts. The warmth from the grill couldn't offer respite from the cold anxiety gnawing at the back of his mind. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As tension simmered like the coffee pot on the burner, Doug's thoughts turned razor sharp. He could practically hear Carol's soft reprimands echoing in his head. Family is about being together, Doug. He tried to shove those words aside, burying the part of him that knew she was right. Family or not, he felt the urgency to make ends meet, to uphold the diner he cherished and the dreams he harbored. Evenings morphed into battlegrounds during dinner, with passive-aggressive comments flying across the table like hot grease. Jake, their son, sat between the opposing forces, a silent mediator watching the clouds of hostility gather. How have it come to this? Discussions filled with hurt felt like lead weights on his heart. He desperately wanted to soothe the rift between his parents and Lisa's family, yet his loyalties felt stretched thinner than the sugar paper they used for bills. Doug's stern expression morphed into clenched fists, and he found himself questioning what he'd fought so hard for, the principles of hard work against the bonds of familial love. When Lisa confronted him, her eyes brimming with confusion and hurt, it pierced through him like a knife. You think charging us will teach us a lesson? Family isn't an invoice, Doug. The tremor of her voice echoed, and Doug felt the walls he'd built to protect his interests wobble. Memories cascaded. Moments from his childhood flooded in. Bolting upright, Doug felt the burden of his decisions weigh heavier than the tattered diner apron hanging around his waist. But just as Doug was beginning to wrestle with the stubbornness of his pride, a heavy knock resounded at the door. He stood there, heart racing, muscles tense, staring at that door like it could unravel everything. Or maybe, just maybe, tie it all together. What came next might just shatter the tangled threads of resentment and chaos that had enshrouded their family. Doug remained frozen in place, the knocks growing louder, almost demanding his attention. Each thud echoed the heaviness in his chest, as though the universe itself was beckoning for change. Suddenly, Lisa's voice filled the room again, a reminder of the conflict festering within him. He inhaled sharply, preparing himself for the unseen. The door swung open to reveal an unexpected visitor, Mary, his childhood friend. The smile on her face was the beacon of warmth that cut through the chilly tension suffocating the diner. "Hey, Doug, long time no see." Her energy was infectious, but Doug's heart felt leaden. He couldn't summon the enthusiasm to reciprocate her joy, not with the turmoil at home looming over him. "Hey, Mary," Doug managed, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. The laughter of Lisa's family buzzed in the background, a stark contrast to the uneven silence he felt building inside. "Thought I'd drop by and catch up," she said, breezing in, her presence momentarily subduing the chaos. She glanced at the preparation on the grill, noting how he had packed the kitchen with his stubborn drive to keep everything together. "Looks like you've been busy." "Too busy, I guess," he replied, his voice trailing off. Mary's eyes narrowed gently, almost intuitively sensing the burden hanging on him. You okay? You look, well, let's say you don't look like you're enjoying it much. The concern etched on her face felt like a lifeline. Doug exhaled, dropping his facade. He felt safer sharing his worries with her than to the storm brewing just beyond the kitchen's friendly confines. It's just family, you know? His voice was low as he continued. I don't know how to balance everything. I feel like I'm drowning, and every decision I make leaves me feeling like the bad guy. Mary leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Family is tricky, and it sounds like you're caught between love and responsibility. But why charge them? Isn't that driving a wedge deeper? Her straightforwardness stirred something within him, a flicker of clarity. Doug stepped away from the grill, feeling the weight of her question settle deep. I thought it would show them the reality of running a business, but that's not truly what family is about, is it? A realization dawned on him as he spoke, a thread unraveling from his tightly wound understanding. Perhaps it's time to recalibrate your priorities, she suggested carefully. You don't have to live up to some idea of a provider that's built on numbers. Sometimes being honest about how you feel can bring out far better connections. Her words ignited a flame in him. The conflict he felt wasn't just about money. It was about trust, communication, and vulnerability, elements he had ignored. Suddenly, he faced the reflection of a deeper truth. He had been viewing his family merely as stakeholders in a business transaction, misplacing profits for a relational currency. It was a realization that sent a jolt through him, infusing a newfound determination. Maybe it's time for a change, he said, his voice more steady than before. This wasn't about invoices. It was about rebuilding the essence of their ties. As Doug glanced toward the doorway where the laughter persisted, he could feel the tide turning. He would address this directly, confront the awkwardness, and maybe even apologize for his misguided decisions. Just then, a loud crash came from the dining area, followed by the sound of laughter turning into a commotion. Heart pounding, he rushed toward the noise. What had now erupted might dismantle his fragile resolve. Was this the decisive moment that would either collapse the remnants of their family ties or weave them back together? Doug paused just outside the dining room, the cacophony of chaos muffling his thoughts. The laughter had morphed into a raucous uproar, and he could sense the energy shift within him, a tide of urgency calling him to action. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of the resolve he had just mustered. He wasn't going to shun his family anymore. No, he was about to step into the chaos and confront it head-on. As he pushed through the door, the scene unfolded before him like a slow-moving train wreck. At the center of the mess was Lisa's cousin, Greg, who had knocked over a tray of drinks, soaking a nearby table. A handful of his relatives were in fits of laughter, while others scrambled to salvage the spilled concoctions. It felt mundane yet monumental. The mundane drama was a stark reminder of the familial bonds Doug had previously undervalued. A small ember flickered within him, igniting a stark awareness that he could choose how to respond here. Not the best time, huh? Doug quipped half-heartedly, glancing around at the chaos. His attempt at humor drew amused gazes, but he didn't feel the lightheartedness he usually would. Instead, it stirred a blend of anxiety and determination. He was stepping on his chosen battlefield, but what strategy would he employ? Greg turned and smiled sheepishly, dropping a paper towel to the floor. You know how it is, just part of the fun, right, Doug? The response hung in the air. Fun? Was this what they labeled the disarray? Doug surveyed the room, realizing the laughter masked deeper issues. These weren't just careless moments. They were shared human experiences, waiting to be pioneered, to be brought to light. Could he harness this mischief into something that reaffirmed their bond? Actually, it is fun, Doug said, stepping closer. But how about we focus on helping each other instead of laughing at the mess? Let's clean up together. The suggestion struck like a beacon in a fog. Raising his voice slightly, he added, Look, I know times have been tough, and we've had our disagreements.
But perhaps this is an opportunity to remember why we're here, to really support one another. Mary had entered the room behind him, her eyes wide as if seeing the scene for the first time. A tentative smile flickered across her face at Doug's unexpected leadership. "Come on, everyone, let's turn this around," she chimed in. As if being pulled by an invisible thread, Doug watched as the atmosphere shifted. The laughter turned into a collective response. The warmth of camaraderie began to replace the discord. The laughter now tempered into something kinder. As they joined together to clean the mess, Doug became aware of the conversation swirling around him, people chit-chatting, reconnecting through shared efforts. He realized this was what he had been missing, connection rather than disconnection. He felt a rush of clarity. Maintaining familial bonds often required work, but it was the most fulfilling labor of all. In that moment, Doug spotted Lisa watching from a distance, her expression a mix of pride and intrigue. Everything hung in the balance, but rather than running away, he took a step toward her, vulnerability coursing through him like electricity. "Can we talk?" he asked, hoping the strength he'd begun to cultivate was evident. As she nodded, Doug made a silent pact with himself. This wasn't just about smoothing things over, it was about genuine growth. The conversation could very well set the tone for the rest of their lives, but there was no backing out now. He was mid-journey and hungry for clarity. But as the room returned to some semblance of normality around them, a chilling reminder struck him. Would Lisa be receptive, or had too much damage already been done? The anxiety bubbled within him. The moment of truth was approaching, but would he find the resilience needed to face it all? Just then, Lisa turned back toward the kitchen, her expression changing. "You won't believe who just walked in." The words hung in the air like a time bomb, ticking away as Doug glanced toward the entrance. He could feel the weight of anticipation bearing down. A game changer was here, and he was about to face another pivotal moment. Doug felt his breath catch as he turned to see who had just entered the room. The laughter and chaos of earlier fell into silent anticipation. Rising dread twisted in his stomach. He hoped desperately that the newcomer was someone who could shift the dynamics positively rather than intensify the already fragile atmosphere. When he saw the tall figure stride through the door, his heart dropped. It was Tom, Lisa's estranged brother. Each family gathering since the rift had felt like a battle against time, filled with unspoken tensions, whisperings of betrayal, and regrets crowding the edges of conversations. The weight of unresolved family issues sometimes felt heavier than the need to reconnect. Tom's presence had always loomed large, but today it carried an additional layer of complexity. He strode into the room with an air of confidence, scrutinizing the scene with a smirk that didn't touch his eyes. Doug could feel the crowd shift. Some grimaced, others straightened their backs as if preparing for impact. It was a moment begging for action, and Doug was caught in the crosshairs. "Didn't expect to see this circus when I popped by," Tom declared, the sarcasm dripping from his voice. A few of the younger cousins snickered, and Doug could see Lisa tense, her pride battling her discomfort. But Doug refused to fall back into the shadows. He now had the resolve to face whatever chaos this family meeting might bring, and he wouldn't allow Tom's jibes to disrupt his burgeoning sense of leadership. "Hey, Tom," Doug replied, summoning a calm he didn't truly feel. "We're actually doing our best to pull together today. Why don't you help us clean up that mess Greg made?" A few heads turned in surprise. Doug could sense both admiration and skepticism in their gazes. Did he have what it took to stand up to Tom? Would he falter under the pressure? The stakes felt exceedingly high. Not only was he addressing Tom, but he was also cementing his role within the family. Unperturbed by Doug's challenge, Tom raised an eyebrow, quick to dismiss him. "Clean up? Or is this just the new family activity? I didn't realize this was a commune." The words ricocheted around the room, and for a fleeting moment, Doug felt exposed. He grappled with his emotions, the old habit of backing down clawing at him. Yet, as he observed the mingling relatives, he realized that his own growth hinged on how he responded to this moment.
Actually, we're trying to support each other as a family, Doug countered, surprising even himself with the strength in his voice. It's not about the spills, it's about what we do afterward that counts. Laughter flickered nervously around the room. Some family members hesitated, uncertain how to navigate this new dynamic, but Doug sensed the shift. He was no longer the wallflower who faded into the background. His voice carried weight now. "What, you think you can play family therapist?" Tom retorted, stepping closer, the challenge evident in his posture. "You haven't exactly been Mr. Responsible lately, have you? Your knack for avoiding problems is legendary."
In that instant, Doug felt a rush of adrenaline, a momentary flash of doubt that threatened to sidetrack his courage. But he steadied himself, sinking deep into the awareness he had cultivated. "Maybe it's time we all stop avoiding the problems and face them instead," he replied, his tone even. The room fell quiet. Doug understood the risks of pushing back against Tom, but he also recognized the potential for revelation. Would confronting this tension illuminate the path toward healing, or would it lead to further division? Lisa watched, her eyes aflame with a mix of disbelief and support. Doug observed the moment hung in the air, teetering between acceptance and rejection. He couldn't predict Tom's next move. However, he was determined to navigate this confrontation with unwavering clarity. Just then, a younger relative spoke up. "Why don't we talk about what's really bothering us? Maybe there's more to this than spilled drinks or messy family dinners." The shift in tone marked a new beginning, one fraught with potential. As Doug faced Tom, the realization washed over him. It was time to strip away the facade and confront hidden truths. The potential for understanding loomed on the horizon. It was the pivotal moment Doug had hoped for, risking everything he'd been building. But would it be enough to break through the emotional barriers surrounding his family? Or would they collapse, leaving him standing alone once more? What lay ahead would test his newfound resolve like never before. Doug's heart raced as he locked eyes with Tom, waiting for a retort that could shatter the fragile thread of unity he had managed to weave. Lisa stood at his side, her expression a mixture of hope and anxiety. He had crossed a threshold. There was no retreat now. Raising his voice, however subtle, had sparked a flicker of respect, even if it was leafed with skepticism. He couldn't let this moment dissolve into another round of barbs. "Maybe we can talk about the past," Lisa interjected, her voice firm, "and how it's shaped all of us." Doug nodded, sensing her unspoken support injecting strength into his resolve. The unspoken invitation hung in the air, a challenge to just scrape the surface and dig deeper. Tom's smirk faltered for a fraction of a second. His posture tightened. Doug seized the opportunity, his ambition steering clear of the doubt that had previously crippled him. He leaned in slightly, a gesture of openness. "Tom, I don't want us to keep running away from difficult conversations. Everyone feels it. This tension, these unacknowledged conflicts. What if today we just laid it all out on the table?" In an act of defiance against his previous self, Doug made a conscious choice to confront the discomfort that defined their gatherings. The air thickened with the weight of suppressed emotions and long-standing grievances. Would their vulnerabilities unlock a path forward, or wouldn't it expose fractured relationships further?
Tom took a step back, crossing his arms defensively. "You think just talking changes anything? This family hasn't changed in years. It's all pretend," he spat, words sharper than knives. Yet Doug saw something deeper flicker in Tom's eyes, a challenge, a hint of fear perhaps, and the very possibility that he might be right. Pretending doesn't help anyone. It only serves to magnify the divide, Doug countered, keeping his voice steady. Anticipation crackled in the room. He was no longer consumed by the fear of judgment or rejection. With Lisa by his side, he felt emboldened. This isn't about being right. It's about figuring out each other as people. There's value in vulnerability. Several murmurs rippled through the crowd, some nodding quietly as if they had never considered the possibility of breaking their silence. Doug's pulse quickened with every small display of agreement. He realized that today, he wasn't just passionately arguing for the family's well-being, he was actively reshaping his identity within it. "Vulnerability?" Tom scoffed, but the bite of his words wavered, hinting at reluctance to dismiss Doug's emerging authority.
You think that's something we can just agree on? It's naive. Is it? Or is it the very thing we've all been too afraid to embrace? Doug felt the tremor of fear recede, a reservoir of confidence surging forth. This was his moment, the test of his willingness to stand firm, even in turbulent waters. Every time we deny our pain, we perpetuate the cycle. What good does holding on to grudges do? As tension shifted within the group, and from the corners of his eye, Doug could see his family members beginning to lean closer, drawn into the conversation. In that pivotal moment, he understood. This was not merely a confrontation with Tom, but a gradual exorcism of the family's collective anguish. Fragile threads of connection began to weave anew. And in his heart, Doug realized this was no longer about proving a point. Yet beneath the fracturing surface, Doug noticed the flicker of dissent in Tom's gaze, the acknowledgement of a challenge that had no easy resolution. He braced himself, drawing in a breath, knowing they had not yet arrived at the culmination of this encounter. "Are we ready to see what lays uncovered when we dive deeper?" Doug asked quietly, unsure of the answer but resolute in his asking. The atmosphere crackled with unresolved energy, teetering on the brink. The moment demanded attention, an urgency that fires up change further still. Doug could sense Tom weighing the options in his mind, but the silent air filled with more than just tension. It was full of opportunity. Each second seemed to stretch long with what awaited them. Would Tom finally break down the walls he had erected, or would he double down on the pain that kept them separated? Doug steeled himself for whatever might transpire, knowing the truth was lurking, begging to be unveiled.
The stakes had grown higher, and he would need to be ready, because the real conversation, the heart of the matter, had only just begun. The silence in the room thickened, a palpable tension that held everyone on the precipice of revelation. Doug felt it settle in his chest, a storm of anticipation mixed with an undercurrent of fear. His gaze was locked on Tom, reading the myriad emotions flickering across his brother's face: defiance, vulnerability, and a flicker of curiosity, all entwined into a complex tapestry of human emotion that Doug sought to unravel. Tom shifted, breaking eye contact momentarily, as if to collect his thoughts, then retorted, "Laying it all out? So you think we can just air our grievances and everything will magically fix itself?" "No, I don't," Doug replied firmly, though inside a voice nagged at him, questioning his own courage in the midst of the storm. "But we can't keep pretending either. If we don't confront our issues, we're just going to keep circling the same drain." Doug's words ignited something within the room, and he could see family members shifting uncomfortably, their long-suppressed emotions rising like a tide. Part of him yearned for resolution, while another part braced for the backlash. Nevertheless, he pressed on, determined to steer this moment toward honesty. "Let's break the cycle," Doug continued, his heart racing but his voice unwavering. "What haunts us binds us. Each unspoken word adds a weight that we have to carry. Don't you all want to let it go?" The response was not immediate. Instead, the group held its collective breath as Tom narrowed his eyes, scrutinizing Doug as though weighing the authenticity of his brother's claim. The standoff cloaked Doug in an old familiar dread, yet there was a quiet strength bubbling up within him, a newly discovered resolve that possessed the gravity to challenge Tom's long-standing facade. At that moment, Doug felt something click into place. This confrontation wasn't solely about Tom. It was also about the version of himself that had settled for silence for too long. It was not just the brothers wrestling with each other, but Doug wrestling with the man he had always been perceived as: complacent, passive, subordinate. "What if we don't talk about it?" Tom finally shot back, his voice low but seething. Feeling the stakes rise, Doug inhaled deeply, letting the tension permeate his body as he spoke. "It may not erase past hurt, but it's a start. I'm tired of sidelining my own voice. I don't want to keep burying what's real. I want to cleanse this toxic atmosphere, even if it means facing the darkness together." The clarity of his statement reverberated in the silence, and Doug watched as Tom's expression shifted, confusion giving way to contemplation. There was an unexpected vulnerability painting Tom's face, a reflection that perhaps Doug saw himself in speculation of their childhood ghosts. Suddenly, Lisa interjected, I think we need to focus less on the past and more on how we can move forward. If we all have grievances, it's time to express what's hidden, not just the grievances, but the love beneath it all. Doug caught himself nodding at her perception, a sense of gratitude flowing through him. He realized that Lisa was adding layers to this conversation, scaffolding the emotional fortifications that could help them navigate shared trauma. Could he really initiate this transformation, this redemption, with her support? Tom's jaw clenched and unclenched, each moment a battle within. Doug willed him to see the possibilities, to consider not only his own pain, but the pain that resided within all of them. Time stretched, every heartbeat amplified the weight of unspoken words. After a heartbeat that felt like an eternity, Tom finally broke the silence. So what are we going to do then? Talk until we feel better? Doug leaned forward, his senses ablaze with urgency. We talk until we can understand each other. We listen until we can begin to heal. But mostly, we show up present. This isn't just about getting it off our chests. It's about forging a new path together. As his words settled into the air, Doug's pulse quickened again, buoyed by a mixture of hope and foreboding. Was this the moment everything shifted? He caught Tom searching for the right words, wrestling with his own fears and pride. Both uncertain and invigorated, Doug braced himself for the spiraling dance of emotions to come. Would they emerge unscathed, or would the honesty bring more turmoil? For the first time, Doug couldn't just anticipate what might unfold. He was part of the catalyst, ready to face the possibility that he might not only inspire change in others, but undergo an irrevocable transformation himself. And then, as if the air itself was waiting for an answer, Tom's gaze met Doug's with a weighted intensity, and the shift in the atmosphere hinted at a confrontation beyond words, one that neither of them could fully comprehend at that moment. Would Doug's courage hold firm, or would old wounds rend the fragile threads of connection he'd begun to weave? Doug felt the weight of Tom's gaze like an invisible force pressing down on him. He could sense that this meeting was on the brink of something significant. Would they finally peel back the layers of resentment they had carried for years, or would it devolve into chaos? The moment hung between them, a fragile thread of potential that could snap at any jolt. "Fine," Tom finally said, the resignation in his tone hanging heavy in the air. "Let's say we're going to talk. What's next? How do we even start?" Doug seized the moment, feeling a surge of responsibility swell within him. "How about we start with what we've each been feeling? Share openly, no interruptions."
Just let it out. His voice gained strength with every word, reflecting an authenticity he hadn't fully tapped into before. The room hesitated, uncertain, but Doug knew he couldn't back down. He stopped himself from overthinking, letting instinct guide him. "I'll go first," he declared. He took a deep breath, drawing upon the emotions that had bubbled within him for years. "I felt overshadowed for so long. I often wondered if I was even noticed in the family. It felt like Tom was always the priority, constantly seeking approval, while I stood back in silence." The admission stung, a jagged shard of honesty, but it also liberated him. Tom shifted uneasily. "Seriously? You thought that? You think it's all about me?" There was a flicker of defensiveness in his eyes, but also a glimmer of realization creeping in. "Yes, I've watched you take all the space, all the accolades." Doug's heart raced at the admission, invigorated by the vulnerability. "And I didn't know how to claim my own. But this is about breaking out of that shadow. I'm tired of feeling small." As he spoke, the room seemed to swell with a deeper understanding, not just between the brothers, but with everyone present. One by one, family members began to share their own buried truths, fears, and longings. Doug's mother voiced her anguish over the divided loyalties between her sons. His sister revealed years spent feeling like an outsider, always trying to fit in. Each revelation chipped away at the protective armor they had clung to, exposing raw emotions and long-buried grievances. Turning to Tom, Doug could see hesitation mixing with curiosity play across his brother's features. "What do you want, Tom? What do you really want?" Silence loomed again, and then Tom spoke, the words halting but powerful. "I want to stop feeling like I have to compete for love. I deserve it just as much as you do." It was a moment of reckoning, a a shared truth that echoed off the walls. In that vulnerability, Doug felt an unexpected bond forming. Perhaps each of them had felt lost in the shadows, grappling for validation in their own ways. As Tom's admission pierced the emotional haze, Doug recognized something remarkable. This conversation was transforming them, peeling away layers of resentment that no longer served them. The tension shifted. Doug began to see glimpses of the man Tom could become. This wasn't merely a confrontation, it was a journey for both of them. They needed clarity now, a concrete step forward. "Let's set some ground rules," Doug proposed, boosting his confidence. "No yelling, just understanding. Each sibling gets to be heard, and we commit to supporting each other without judgment." His family nodded, the collective heartbeat accelerating with renewed purpose. Each face reflected a weariness, but also hope, a mutual desire to shape things differently going forward. As Doug continued to outline their way ahead, he felt a confidence flourish within him. It wasn't just about confronting the past, it was also about claiming a future as a powerful force. But lurking in the back of his mind was the realization that confronting one another was only the beginning. It began to dawn on Doug that the hardest discussions lay ahead, beyond the familial strife, the discussions with himself. The uncertainty simmered when Tom brought up the unthinkable. Are we willing to examine the family dynamics that span decades, to really dig into our roots? Doug's heart raced. As exhilarating as this moment was, he felt deep trepidation. This journey would demand more than raw emotion. It called for a reckoning with the truth. Would he be strong enough to face the family's history, the failures, and ultimately himself? As he ruminated on Tom's words, Doug's resolve wavered beneath the challenge. It was clear they were on the brink of uncharted territory, teetering between potential healing and unearthing truths better left buried. Did he truly have the courage to see it through? The heavy silence hinted at a broader confrontation on the horizon, one that could change everything for all of them, their bond, their identities, and perhaps even their futures. Would it shatter them or forge a new, unbreakable lineage? The air was thick with anticipation as Doug registered Tom's words. It felt like standing on the precipice of a cliff, the wind howling about him, invigorating yet terrifying. He had opened the floodgates, but now he had to navigate the currents that followed. With each breath, he sensed the gravity of what lay ahead. This wasn't merely about reconciling their differences, it was a quest to unravel their very identities. "Dig into our roots," Doug echoed, letting the idea take shape in his mind. While he could feel the hesitance in Tom's voice, he couldn't ignore the flicker of hope that danced behind it. They had touched on something fundamental, something that could shift the dynamics that had long constrained them. "Which roots are we talking about?" he asked, a tremor of sincerity threading his voice. "The ones from our childhood? The disappointments? The moments that made us who we are today?" Tom nodded slowly, his brow furrowed in contemplation. His expression mirrored Doug's internal dialogue, conflicted yet curiously determined. They both knew a reckoning wasn't merely necessary, it was inevitable. Each family member seated around the table seemed to sense the gravity of the moment, their eyes darting between the brothers. Doug took a deep breath, internally grappling with his own vulnerabilities. What suppressed emotions lay hidden beneath his surface? Could he withstand the scrutiny that delving into their shared past would demand? "I'll be honest," Doug began, his voice quivering yet steadfast. "I'm scared. Scared that if we dig too deep, we might unearth things that have been buried for a reason." He paused, gauging the reactions of his family. "But I can't pretend anymore."
I don't want us to circle around the pain. I want to confront it, to make sense of it. As he revealed his fears, he felt a twinge of pride awaken within him. For too long, he had allowed his trepidation to anchor him in place. Today, he was choosing possibility, choosing to embrace the discomfort that came with honesty. It felt empowering, like shedding old skin. Tom leaned forward, his face softened by understanding. "I'm scared too, to face what's been kept in the dark, to know that it won't only be about accountability, but also forgiveness. It's a connected journey, Doug. We have to be willing to seek understanding before judgment." In this exchange, Doug sensed a shift. They were no longer adversaries, but fellow navigators embarking on a daunting expedition. It was an evolution neither had anticipated, and yet both sensed it was vital. The ties that had shackled them were loosening. "Understanding," Doug echoed, contemplating what it might mean for them all. It's not just about confronting old wounds, it's also about recognizing what we can learn from them. He felt the weight of his own words resonate deeply. We owe it to ourselves and to each other to open those doors. How can we support each other in that process? Doug's mother cleared her throat, her voice fragile yet filled with conviction. What if we designate separate sessions, focus on one dynamic at a time to explore how it shaped us? It might feel less overwhelming that way. Her suggestion held merit, a strategy that allowed room for thorough examination and reflection. Doug nodded, seeing the value in pacing themselves through this necessary unearthing. The table sighed collectively, each family member digesting the idea. Doug's heart raced at the thought of peeling back layers, revealing not just the family's hardships, but also potential for growth, healing, and reconciliation. As the conversation unfolded, Doug could feel the fabric of their family transforming. The shadows of their past felt less ominous. A flicker of light emerged in their midst. It was undeniable that they were setting a foundation for something more profound, an emotional terrain built on mutual understanding. Yet with this shift came the realization that Doug would need to confront deeper issues himself, his own insecurities, the narratives he had woven. Could he remain open-minded? What personal truths would he need to acknowledge? Suddenly, a pit formed in his stomach as a distant voice whispered doubts. Was he truly prepared for the confrontation with his inner demons? He felt the enthusiasm colliding with anxiety, the urgency of transformation pushing him into uncharted realms. In the background, as discussions continued to brew, Doug's attention was drawn again to Tom, and suddenly the safety of the present felt precarious. Would they be prepared to face the repercussions of their revelations? What if confronting those roots would unearth wounds so profound they could fracture the tentative bond they were beginning to forge? The question hung in the air, echoing ominously. The deeper they dug, the greater the risk. As Doug stared into the uncertainty unfurling before him, he grappled with a single truth. The time had come to face the shadows of their shared past, and it was anyone's guess whether the outcome would lead to newfound strength or renewed division. The first light of morning filtered through the thin curtains, casting a soft glow across the table where family members now gathered, each one appearing more tentative than before. Doug sat at the center of this charged atmosphere, his thoughts racing as he anticipated the day ahead, one that would demand openness and courage. Despite the support around him, a gnawing anxiety wormed its way into his consciousness. How would they navigate the emotional labyrinth that lay before them? He pushed away breakfast from his plate and leaned back in his chair, steeling himself for what they had promised the night before. Today would mark the commencement of their structured sessions, each intended to dig into a specific theme from their past. As they exchanged knowing glances, he recognized the unspoken agreement between them. This was not just about family healing. It was a personal expedition, one that would expose raw truths and hidden fears. "Okay, let's get this started," he said, his voice steady but softer than he intended. "We decided to begin with our childhoods. After all, it's the roots that have shaped us, right?" Tom nodded. Doug could see his brother was just as unsettled by the weight of the topic, yet he appreciated the shared resolve. "Maybe we should set some ground rules," Tom suggested, glancing around the table. "We need a safe space, a no-judgment zone." The group exchanged murmurs of agreement. Doug felt a flicker of reassurance. They were establishing the framework for deep, honest expression. However, the apprehension bubbling beneath the surface reminded him of the immense vulnerability inherent in revealing oneself. "I think we should share one standout memory from our childhoods," Doug proposed, tightening his grip on the edge of the chair. "A moment that might exemplify how we saw our family dynamic." As the conversation picked up, Doug's heart raced. The first to speak was Rose, their sister, who shared a childhood episode of being overlooked for awards at school, her heartache palpable. Doug leaned forward attentively. Her experience resonated deeply with him. In the ways they strived for acknowledgement yet felt underappreciated, there was a shared pain that wound through their story. Then it was Tom's turn, his voice slightly wavering as he recounted an incident when he had felt the brunt of their parents' high expectations, recounting the relentless pressure that formed a wall between them. Doug's insides churned with a mixture of sympathy and reflection. He realized how those expectations had shaped not just Tom, but also himself in unarticulated ways. Maybe that's why we've struggled as adults, Doug ventured, half questioning, half proposing. It's like we were molded into something we didn't even want to be. With each story, painful details emerged, like threads peeling away from their familial tapestry. Doug began to confront dormant memories, tangled emotions he had buried in a bid to maintain a semblance of stability. A flood of shame rose. He remembered being resentful for not achieving a perfect life when he saw Tom and Rose excel in areas where he felt lackluster. It was a revelation. Their expectations had created a competition, an invisible barrier, rather than the kinship he wished they had cultivated. Tom's gaze met his, and Doug saw in him a tentative understanding and a parallel struggle. As their session progressed, Doug felt them all edging closer to a shared vulnerability, yet the weight of acknowledging these feelings hung heavy. The conversations grew more intense, and he fumbled with uncertain memories, caught between denying and confronting those emotional truths. By the time the sun dipped low beyond the horizon, Doug found himself drained yet exhilarated. The day's revelations felt like scrubbing a wound, uncovering the filth, but also the potential for healing. It was undeniable. The groundwork had been laid. But as they concluded, Doug's anxiety surged again. The deeper they dug into their pasts, unsettling thoughts crept forth. Would they break through these entrenched pains, or were they merely opening floodgates to resentment and regret? Would they emerge whole, or leave scars deeper than the ones they began with? That question loomed, heavier than any emotional confrontation they had faced thus far. Doug was left contemplating a surge of uncertainty. As shifts in the narrative formed within him, could he navigate it without losing himself once again? In that moment, he stood at the cusp of a tumultuous realization. Healing wasn't devoid of strife, and the real work was just beginning. With an unfamiliar urgency in his chest, Doug pulled his breath inward, sensing that the next chapter would demand more than just reflection. It needed to provoke essential choices. Would he be ready to confront not just the past, but the potential for transformation, no matter how frightening it seemed? The days melted into weeks as Doug and his family ventured deeper into their emotional exploration. Each session carved out a sanctuary where vulnerabilities flourished. Loneliness and misunderstandings that had festered for years began to peel away layer by layer. Doug had emerged as an unexpected leader, guiding discussions with a balance of humility and strength that surprised even him. Today, let's focus on forgiveness, Doug suggested one evening, the weight of the word hanging palpably in the air.
The eyes around him flickered with uncertainty, but also a flicker of courage. They had walked through the shadows of their collective past. Now, a glimmer of light beckoned. Forgiveness had always seemed elusive to Doug, tethering itself to fear of vulnerability, fear of reconciling with disappointment. Yet now, as he looked at his family, he felt emboldened to dismantle that fear, to transform it into something constructive. So he began the session by sharing his own journey towards forgiveness. I realized that holding on to resentment was only growing the rift between us. It was suffocating, he disclosed, vulnerably laying bare the core of his inner dialogue. Tom's brow furrowed, and he spoke up. It's hard to forgive when you still feel the wounds. How do we release that? Acknowledging the discomfort wasn't easy, but Doug understood that it was part of their healing journey. Forgiveness doesn't mean excusing the pain, he replied, his voice steady. It means choosing to liberate ourselves from it. I want to let go of resentment towards you, Tom. I don't want to carry it anymore. The room held its breath. As Tom absorbed Doug's words, something shifted behind his eyes. I felt that burden too, he admitted, his voice lowering as vulnerabilities cascaded around the table. I want to forgive as well, but how do we even begin? The circle transformed as Doug encouraged each family member to express their struggles with forgiveness. His mother shared the difficulty of reconciling her mixed emotions over her raising of them, while Rose reflected on times when she felt overshadowed, unsure of her place. Each revelation cascaded with raw honesty, weaving an intricate tapestry of emotions. Forgiveness was sounding less like an abstract concept and more like a shared aspiration. As the session reached its peak, Doug felt a sense of kinship unlike any he had previously known. They began to forge a path of collective healing, angst giving way to empathy. With each moment, the atmosphere lightened, turning critical corners of resentment into seeds of possibility. Then Doug decided to step into the uncertainty. "I want to apologize, Tom," he said resolutely. "For the times I played it safe, avoided speaking my truth, remained in the background. It wasn't right, and I'm sorry for letting our relationship suffer." Tom's eyes widened, surprised by the openness. "I guess I was never quite certain if you saw me as a brother or a rival. I thought I had to compete to be loved, but I see now that it was you who inspired me to do better," he replied, his voice catching on emotion. "You deserve acknowledgement for who you are." In that moment, their family dynamic cracked open, revealing soft spots where resentment had hardened. Doug felt an unfamiliar sense of connection, real connection.
They were no longer just roles played. They were flesh and blood people, entangled in the same historical narrative, while simultaneously standing as individuals worthy of love. As the evening wrapped up, Doug stood before them, feeling the shift within himself. He was no longer merely the diner owner or the discontented family member. He had discovered that he was the architect of change within his family through courage, resolve, and an unwavering commitment to understanding. With every step, he felt the echoes of his past dissipate into something new, a solid confidence that had taken root. The fractured pieces began fitting into place, empowering him not merely to overcome, but to flourish. While his diner would still operate on its daily grind, Doug realized he had conquered a more pressing mission, the mission of establishing a family founded on trust and open communication. This new arrangement was worth far more than any financial success. It was a legacy of emotional clarity that he could pass on. As he looked into his family's faces that evening, he appreciated the tapestry they were weaving together. Will they remain complexity intertwined? Absolutely. But in the intertwining lies an appreciation for each branch's struggle and triumph. Finally, they were on the path to healing, fully understanding that this journey into vulnerability would eventually lead to a profound relationship, a family bound by choice rather than obligation. It was time to turn the page on their shared story, one ripe with possibility. Restlessly, he wanted to encourage those outside this experience. Doug raised his voice, summoning the energy that had illuminated their sessions for weeks. Let's create a ripple effect. Let's encourage others to seek internal forgiveness. Our ability to transform extends beyond these walls. Let's share our journeys. With every heart aligned towards growth, as Doug stepped forward, he felt validated, truly recognized, and he finally knew he was ready to embrace whatever was next. Now you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this intense conclusion below. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative journey. Your support matters immensely.